Notes for the substitution method of solving a system of equations. So the substitution method is a method of solving systems of equations by substituting equations within one another. Steps for solving a system of equations by substitution. Step 1, solve one equation for x or y. Step 2, substitute this expression into the other expression or equation and solve for the variable. Step 3, substitute your answer into the revised equation from step 1 and solve for the other variable. So this one is either going to give you your x or your y, and this step is going to give you your other one that you did not solve for in step 2. So let's do this example. We could graph these equations. So there's nothing wrong with using graphing to solve a system of equations. It's just that there are many ways to solve a system of equations, and graphing is one way, and the other way is by substitution. So we're practicing the substitution strategy now. And often we want to use substitution when we have a variable, either the y or the x, that does not have a coefficient in front of it. Because then it's like almost obvious. So what do I mean by that? Well, if these two equations are related to one another and there is a coordinate pair that will work for each of them, if I look at one of the equations, so let's just start with this one, and I see that it is set equal to, has y equal to an expression, I should be able to plug that expression in down here for y. I should be able to take that whole expression and put it in for y and see if I can solve for x. So that's what I'm going to do. And I like to underline or box in the two things that I am switching out so that I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to take this expression and I'm going to put it down here, and instead of writing y, I'm going to write this. So I'm going to write 4x minus 1, that's my y, is equal to 2x minus 5. Now I only have one variable, so I'm solving for x. I'm going to try and figure out my x value first. So it says solve one equation for x or y. So I'm using this equation and I'm solving for x, and I just substituted this expression in for y. Notice they're on opposite sides. That's also something to remember. I could have done it this way. I could have replaced 2x minus 5 for this y value part, but I just chose to do this one. It wouldn't make any difference which one I chose. So now I can just use regular algebra and solve this. I can see that I have more x's on this side than I do on this side, so probably I want to try and eliminate the x's on the right hand side. So I can do that by adding negative 2x to each side, and that will give me 2x's over here minus 1 is equal to negative 5. And then I've got my x's on one side, so let's try and just have our constants on the other. So I can add 1 to each side, and this is going to cancel out. I have 2x is equal to -4, so I can divide both sides by 2. Those will cancel, and I'm going to be left with x is equal to a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So x is -2. So if that's correct, I have my x value of -2. This is my solution set. This is my answer. But now I have to figure out what y is. Now that I know what x is, I can choose either equation and plug this value in for x and solve for y. So I'll just go ahead and use the second equation. So now I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to plug in -2 into this equation. So I have 2x, so I'm going to have 2 times -2, because that was my value that I just solved for, -5. And I'm going to say plus a -5. So this is going to give me -4 plus -5, and that's going to give me -9. So I have my y value as -9. Now, what I should do is I should plug these back in and see if I do get the correct answer. So I'm going to substitute -2 in to this equation and see if I get -9 for y. 2 times -2 would give me, or excuse me, 4 times -2 would give me -8. So I would have -8 here, and this is actually plus a -1. -8 plus a -1 gives me -9, which I said was my y. Let's look down here. If I plug in -2 right here, well, that's just what I did over here, and it checks out. So this is my solution set for this problem. It's a coordinate pair.